So my name is Lyle Estill, and I'm here in Pittsboro, North Carolina, which is in the woods.
I think I'm here today because 17 years ago I wrote a book called Inquiries into the Nature of Slow Money.
Welcome to When People Lead. I'm Jeff Rola. What if money moved at the speed of community? Today I'm joined by Lyle Estill and Tasch, two pioneers of the slow money movement. Let's get into it.
Used fooding and that sort of thing. So, and across Europe, we're seeing that a lot. I'm not sure what it's like in different areas across the USA.
Well, and whatnot, so I was kind of able to grow off of that.
Require a supply of angels who are willing to risk capital.
You're actually in every place you can go in this country.
And whatnot, so I was kind of able to grow off of that. Answering your question would make me sound like I know an answer that I don't know yet. Except to say we and I could say more depending on how much detail you want, but everything that I am doing now is trying to address exactly what you said. I want to see my reading the tea leaves of slow money. I would read the macro or not macro, the bigger picture of slow money like this. Tens of thousands of people participated in slow money in various ways.
Tasch has a question that sounds simple, but changes everything once you really sit with it. What if your money stayed home? Not in a bank 3 states away. Not in a fund managed by someone who's never seen your town. But here, in the farms and food enterprises and neighbors you actually know. In 17 years, slow money has moved over $80 million into local food systems. This is episode 2 of When People Lead.
Let's just get that. Just wait for the timer to kick in. Okay, you're off.
Do I have to introduce myself first, or?
Introduce yourself? Give us a bit of background, what your view and purpose and whatever is in life and so on, and let's take it from there.
This introduction is going to take quite a long time because I have many years to summarize briefly. I think I'm here today because 17 years ago I wrote a book called Inquiries into the Nature of Slow Money, Investing as a Food, Farms, and Fertility Mattered. And that book sparked with a bunch of people, including a close colleague and friend of Lyle's, Carol Pepe Hewitt in North Carolina. And as I traveled around the country on basically what started as a glorified book tour, it became apparent quickly that a lot of people wanted to start acting on many of the ideas that were in the book. I won't even touch what came before that. Hopefully, a career in philanthropy and community development finance and small-time venture capital and different things will inform or make what I say authentic and hopefully believable. But we don't have to go into any of the gory detail. A little bit in France. We have a new group that just started in Israel a couple of years ago. It's tiny, but very promising. And I've been trying to kind of, I'm not going to say it was quite a tiger by the tail because, the system change that we need is quite profound, and we're just one tiny little thing creating a little change in one aspect of it. But the reason I'm still at it is because I think it's still possible to create change. Even though the odds seem horribly long. And right at this moment, we're like, it seems even more preposterous than usual. But there are reasons to think that we'll get through the current thing. The current thing, which I'm not even going to name, is not really the thing. The thing is climate change and environmental degradation and irrevocable damage to the living systems of the planet, and directly and indirectly all the people living on the planet, et cetera. So that's why I'm still at it. I'll say more about that as we proceed.
So Woody, if you don't mind just expanding on those three elements, you said I picked up the fertility. I just didn't get the first two. Just tell us briefly about that again.
The title for the book, it's Food, Farms, and Fertility, but we don't have to focus on the book or the book title per se. Okay. The reason there's a slow money movement, in my opinion, as I kind of read the tea leaves as we've been going, is because if you just try to solve the problems of industrial agriculture, just talking about farming and the technical aspects of farming and food systems and whatnot, and you don't address the underlying economic challenges of flows of capital, access to capital, wealth inequality, commodification, financialization, globalization, blah, blah, blah. If you don't do anything about any of that, the best farmer in the world is going to have almost an impossible task of making a living, which is actually what they're all facing. So if you, I would summarize that. Lyle, sorry this is taking so long as an introduction. I think because of the local food movement and the tiny bit because of slow money and different things, people are saying we're willing to entertain new ways of valuing things and new ways of connecting. And we recognize there's a problem. I think, the challenge is to get enough people moving in a different direction to create a force that can actually move the needle more than we have so far.
I got to say that in the UK we've got a lot of local farming support. We have a lot of local markets. It's really a significant part of people's weekly shop in terms of buying fresh produce and so on, directly organically grown, organically produced fooding and that sort of thing. So, and across Europe, we're seeing that a lot as well. So it may be a particular thing about the USA that's slightly different in that respect. I'm not sure what's happening in other parts of the world, but definitely across the UK and Europe, there's a big focus on local support, local farming, sort of the producing of food and so on. So there is definitely a movement, and there's definitely people are supporting that whole movement. So I'm not sure what it's like in different areas across the USA.
Well, I want to give Lyle a chance to weigh in, but all
right. I'll take a swing at that, Woody.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. So my name's.
So give us your intro as well while you're at it, Lyle.
So my name is Lyle Estill, and I'm here in Pittsboro, North Carolina, which is in the woods of Chatham County. So we're in the South, North Carolina, and I have been working in the food shed for the last 35 years. And I've been an investor in farms. I've been financing farms. I developed a variety of pepper. I have, we've been making food. I currently am still in the food business, right now I'm making spirituous liquor at a little distillery. So I've been sitting here doing this for a long time. I'm a local economy guy. I was a biodiesel guy, and I'm a local economy guy. Woody comes through town on tour. And I'm smitten. I'm blown away with this concept of peer-to-peer lending. That's the part of what he mapped out that Carol Hewitt and Jordan and myself found interesting. We walked across the street from his reading and said, gosh, we could do something here. And we created Slow Money North Carolina. And slow money took many forms in many places. So sometimes it was equity, sometimes it was lending, sometimes it was therapy. It was all kinds of things all over the place. And in the case of Slow Money North Carolina, we were fairly effective at peer-to-peer lending. And we did about 300 loans. We hit about $3 million. Our town is, by the way, this is a town of 5,000 in Chatham County, a population 50,000. So this is tiny, with, by the way, generations of investment in local agriculture and sort of Piedmont Biofuels was here. It was a local maker of fuel. We've been doing this kind of local economy stuff. So slow money that.
Yes, I can hear you.
Is a yeah. So Woody, we can hear you. I just can you hear us?
I hear you fine. It's just Lyle.
Okay.
It's just Lyle lost me somehow.
Lyle, just do testing, and I can always cut this out.
I mean, I can't hear Woody. I can hear you. I can't hear Woody.
And Lyle,
here you go.
Lyle needs to hear me.
I can't hear you, Woody.
You need to hear me.
Jeff, can you hear both of the guests?
I can hear everybody.
I can hear Jeff.
Woody, can you hear me?
I hear everybody fine. So somehow Lyle is just, Lyle never did listen to me very much. So I just want to say that right now.
Oh, is that you, Woody?
Can you
okay,
hear me?
So what is the play here, gentlemen? If I can't hear Woody, am I about to repeat everything Woody just said?
What we'll do is I will ask a few questions, and I'll throw it to Lyle, or I'll throw it to Woody, and you can answer the questions. And maybe you will be able to talk among yourselves, but we'll try to figure out a way where that can happen, at least for the time being. Does that sound good?
Give it a try.
All right. So what I'd like to hear, you've explained the concept of slow money and peer-to-peer lending. How does it differ from microfinance in many ways? I'll start with Lyle.
Oh boy. I suppose it is microfinance. I guess the question is the source. So in peer-to-peer, it would be, your friends, family, your neighbors.
Often with no collateral, and they are hyper-local, for the most part, hyper-local. So the people live near each other, and that is a distinguishing feature to many other kinds of crowdfunding or microfinance. The reason I said it depends is because for the last several years, we've been pioneering a new model, which is based on donated capital and 0% loans. I do hope I get a chance to talk about that, which is where I'm kind of putting all my energy going forward for a bunch of different reasons. But that's still a tiny part of the overall slow money movement. I mean, that's been, a few hundred loans and a few $1 million over the past few years, but it's, we're leaning into that going forward.
Lyle, how do you get from slow money to big money? I know Slow Money North Carolina has made some loans. You've been in and out of the movement periodically. Where can we see the opportunities to expand?
Oh, wow. Well, I think the start point is just the notion of where your money comes from. And I think that we sort of live in a world that puts all that into black boxes and makes it less accessible or less understandable or out of reach. And I think that if you want to go from small money to big money, you need to extend your reach, which is in part the idea that anyone can do this.
Woody, are there regulatory requirements for the process? I know banks have their rules. Microfinance has its rules on how it's developed. How does slow money deal with the process itself?
Well, because there's not one way of doing slow money, and there's no one fund or no one instrument, there's no one answer to that question. But basically, we all, most of the local group, for the most part, local groups that endured doing slow money over many years, they either interacted with local state regulators and kind of made sure they weren't running afoul of anything, either sometimes informally. And I think in some cases, people, regulators just didn't want to bother because everything we're doing was very small. But in other cases, it was more formal. And then up to and including now that we're doing the 0% things, we're actually creating small 501c3s in all of these places. So we're getting, blessed by the IRS for a certain set of activities and a way of doing the loans and all of that stuff, which is a more formal clearance process, if you will, that says if you do this, this, and this, it's kosher and you can proceed. Now, just a comment about the regulatory environment in general does not make it easy to do this kind of thing per se. In other words, there's lots of friction for an individual investor who is not an accredited investor, without getting into the weeds on this, to just make a loan to a company down the street per se, although there are people like Michael Schuman and others working very hard and some community capital groups to create pathways for that to happen more. The subtitle is Getting Real About Money in the 21st Century. And obviously, I don't think crypto is getting real about money in the 21st century, even though it's dominating the airwaves. It seems like that's all there is. So, we're at a point where the struggle is between fake and real. And there's nothing more real than local food grown in healthy soil and the people who are growing and consuming that food in relationship to one another in the land. So that's a big thing, and I'm hoping that we can engage millions of people by creating a vehicle for people to make a very small contribution if they are not in a position to make a direct loan themselves or start a slow money group in their community. I'm sorry that's kind of a long-winded answer, but it is what it is.
No, I understand that, and what I would like to say is that people want to be supportive. They want to engage. Everybody's looking to connect these days, even though we're in this internet isolation booth that we all share and that we're exploiting right now. But it also is a tool to help us engage and help us connect in ways that we never could before. And that's why I see where somebody in North Carolina can talk to somebody in Oregon or somebody in New Zealand and come across with an opportunity that all three might benefit from. Lyle, you've been a serial entrepreneur most of your life, operating in the food shed. There are innovations coming down that I'm not aware of that I'm sure you've seen that say, that's promising. That's something that we should probably exploit. That's something we should probably get a bunch of people involved with. How do we do that?
Just started in Israel. Another is in formation in Amsterdam. We have had a few angels doing slow money loans in France. There is a group up in Canada doing quite a bit of work that's kind of an affiliated project of slow money or kind of a friend of slow money, I guess I'd say. There are folks in Australia who are interested. There are people in China who are interested. But I wouldn't presume to be able to design something that would be appropriate in terms of legal structure and culture in another country, right? I know about, just like Lyle is saying he knows about North Carolina, I'll just say for the sake of argument, I know something about the United States. I know just enough of things. So I'm really trying to make something work here, trusting that as it grows here, it will send out positive ripples elsewhere. Now, you asked if there are other organizations. I'll just give you one example. Yes, there's a group in south of France called Terre de Liens, and they have been around for roughly the same amount of, maybe 15 or 20 years. I think their numbers are now into the $100 million plus range of farmland preserved, small farms help. It's a combination of loans and grants and technical assistance and whatnot. And they're working with small farms, I think largely in the south of France. So that's one that I'm aware of that's pretty far down the pike as a project and showing some real traction. I'm sure there are many others. at its best. I'll just leave it there.
Okay. You brought up the issue of angels. Does this kind of financing require a supply of angels who are willing to risk capital in a way that most would not? And where do we find all those angels? Lyle, do you think that's the case, or is it something more locally born and locally grown in that system?
I think in our case, angels is too big a word. These maybe the word is neighbor or something like that, or customer, or eater.
Yeah.
So I don't think angels to me sounds. Also, it's at one point you used the word structure. I would say it's not really a structure. In fact, I would say structure is not Woody's genius. I think Woody's genius is in inspiration. But there isn't really another organization you can look to and say, oh, yeah, slow money would be like that. Or, oh, we could have been like, I mean, it could have been that, but I'm not sure that is maybe Woody's way.
Well, I can say I can say.
Why do I wish I could hear him now?
I'm against structure. Well, if you take a corporation as the manifestation of the structure of the flow of capital, and it'll sound if I put my foot in my mouth a little more. No, I'm not against corporations, but I'm against a corporate approach to farming and local food systems that destroys the essence of. So deconstructing, actually, there's a good word to use right now. We have to deconstruct some of the systems that are there. Industrialization is a bunch of structures. That's what it is. We're not suffering because from insufficient industrialization. We're suffering from too much industrialization. And so if you say words like agrarian in contradistinction to industrial, say what are agrarian values? Is that even a thing? Well, it isn't much of a thing anymore, but it isn't because of the industrialization of the economy and specifically the food system. So yeah, the word structure is pretty loaded. I think going back to what Lyle said, picking up on the word neighborly is beautiful, because this is, people feeding one another and helping one another, mutuality, conviviality. Slow food uses that. These are basic social. I'm going to really screw everything up now. Basic social constructs. Just let's make it nice and ambiguous. But the point is we have to restructure. How about that? We need to restructure some of these relationships at the local level. That will allow for more informality, more neighborliness, more mutuality, more cooperation, more a greater sense of place. And that all sounds mushy, particularly in a world where you just click on cryptocurrency and you something happens. But it is vitally, I believe, vital to our survival, certainly to our happiness, and probably to our survival.
And how do those neighbors find each other, Lyle, in regard to building a slow money organization, building a slow money contingent for the community? Right now, we're kind of isolated in our own little internet connection, and so we go through the traditional means of, well, I talk to my banker, and my banker is really happy to lend me money if I have money. I can talk to the government sometimes, and they have loan programs, sometimes grant programs, and they're usually oversubscribed, and then you have to go back to a bank sometimes before you can get funding. So it's a structural nightmare to get the $20,000 sometimes. Or you can go to a lender that is going to charge you outrageous interest in that situation. How do we find those neighbors that can come together and say, okay, I can throw this much into the pot, and you can throw this much into the pot. Let's help Mary's Food Kitchen stay alive this week, or let's get so-and-so a better dishwasher so that they can serve the people down the road. I'm trying to understand how we can generate that groundswell of people willing to help people, because there's a bunch of people out there that want to do that. They want to help their neighbors. They want to see returns, and they want to see a thriving society, especially in our rural areas, which are just getting hollowed out right now by corporate decisions that are made somewhere else. And so the farms are getting bought up and industrialized, and the other resource-based things that we're doing in rural communities are being just managed by hedge funds instead of Bob the guy down the street who was running the mill. So where can we find the common ground or put that together? Is that a co-op model? Should we look at possible cooperatives to do that, Lyle?
So we did it through facilitation. We did it through meeting in groups at bars and restaurants. And Carol would give a talk. Carol and Lyle would give a talk, and then Carol would go out and meet tirelessly with the farmer that was saying, well, gosh, maybe I should ask for this, or the butcher that says, well, if I had this, I could do that type of thing. And so it was facilitated one-on-one. And I think actually our project got bigger and bigger and bigger through face-to-face facilitation. And that's something that Carol Hewitt's marvelous at. And I also think that that's the reason our slow money North Carolina kind of has receded or gone away, is because of a facilitation model. And then now we've got a pandemic lockdown. Doesn't work. You can't get the big crowds out to the restaurant like you used to. And so, and I think, our executive director, Carol, just moved on to other things. And so slow money North Carolina kind of, dissipated on that front. So no, I don't think it's of course I don't want to knock a co-op model, but I don't know if a co-op model, co-op models might work in some places. They might be a good idea. Sometimes co-ops are great ideas, and sometimes they're not. That's the other thing. So it's not really co-op good, hedge fund evil. I think that there is such a thing as evil co-ops. Farm Bureau of North Carolina, if you would like an example.
Yes.
And then I think there's also such a, there is such a thing as business for good. There are, there is B Corp certification, and there's probably hedge fund evil. Both can be either.
Well, I think what you're saying is you need champions, and
that's right.
And then you need succession planning, because burnout is the thing. Burnout comes. Yeah,
that's absolutely right, and so yeah, that's exactly right.
These movements do have they have a curve, and sometimes you're riding the curve up, and sometimes you're riding the curve down, and how do we look at ways where, and that's where I come back to that word infrastructure or support, that allows the concept to continue without the energy suck that comes with having a champion go out and make things happen, and then when that champion either moves on or goes away for some reason, the energy of the whole organization goes away.
Well,
so for me, it's trying to build an economic engine that provides meaningful work. That's what you have to do, is you have to provide an economic engine that provides meaningful work, and get a big enough engine going that it can actually power the movement. So that's where, that is kind of my life's work.
Yeah. And so, but the momentum. Yeah, I was going to go to the momentum, Woody. How do we build that momentum and make it create its own energy in that.
Well, a part of the answer is a direct follow-on to what you were just discussing. So Lyle was talking about creating an engine as a small business. That's one kind of engine. We are now creating, I'll just stick with the engine metaphor, small engines using the following model. Now, this is a funding engine. This is an engine for funding small farms and local food businesses. We're taking, I'll give the example of Boulder, Colorado, where I was living until a few years ago. What I'm now describing, there are, let's say, 4 pure examples of this in the US, and they're all in Colorado because that's where I was. And then there are 2 other examples that are kind of sister examples. And now there's another one starting in Israel, which is also a pure example of the following. People donate some money, donated capital, small amounts. It can be small amounts. If it's a larger angel donor, they can put in 5 figures, which some have. But most people are putting in 25 or 100 or $250. That money goes is a tax-deductible donation to the local pool, the local group. These local groups have either their own 501c3 or they're affiliated with a local fiscal sponsor. Then they meet, just like Lyle was talking about. People get together with the farmers and they decide collaboratively, if you can believe it, who to make 0% loans to. And they're all making 0% loans. And then that capital, when it gets repaid, recirculates in the community. Now, the structure, if you go to the engine part of this, is in Boulder, we started roughly in 2017-ish. And COVID hit, of course, that slowed things down a little. But we now have about 115, that's more than that, probably 125 plus individual members, meaning people who've made a donation in the current calendar year. Therefore, they get a vote. They've made almost $1 million worth of loans, approximately 40 loans. Only a few of them have not performed and paid back, to your earlier question. Most of them are 4-year loans. We don't have to go into the details of that. Some of them are 5. But and the reason I went into that detail is so people can hear actual numbers and scale, because what happens is as the money starts recirculating and you suddenly have a flow of a few $100,000 in the bank and money coming in and going out, you can get to the point as a group that you can pay for staff. And the Boulder group isn't quite there. The Boulder group is being led purely by volunteers still. But over time, it will afford the flow of capital to pay some staff because it's a nonprofit. It's not a for-profit. And so the group can decide to invest in itself, if you will. And that is important because what Lyle described, Carol Pepe Hewitt was one of the superstars of the slow money movement. And after 10 years, I don't know how old she was when she started. She was probably 62 when she started. And she was, I'm guessing, I'm probably getting in trouble. I take it back. Edit that out. I don't know how old she was when she started, but I know she was 10 years older when she stopped. and so absolutely, you can't maintain optimal functionality with pure volunteers. Over time, you need to build some capacity. So creating these recirculating pools of capital locally are a way to build capacity long term.
Okay, with that, I'm going to ask the one future question of where do you see this movement in 5 years' time, and can it connect the dots of these localized organizations that could possibly affiliate on a more regional or national basis? And I'll ask Lyle that to see if he can put his crystal ball to work.
Let's see. Can you connect the dots? I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's important to realize that those dots are out there, and they're actually in every place you can go in this country. So you pick a town that you think is uncool, maybe Orlando, and you find cool stuff happening in the local food movement on the edge of town, where they propped up this and they took over an old army base and they financed it this way and they and the mayor got behind them, and on and on. And then you go to the next town. Let's go to Buffalo, New York, right? It's not, we can all say, oh, declining Rust Belt. No, there's really cool stuff going on in the food system in Buffalo, New York, and Cleveland, and every other place you go.
That's great. Woody, I'm going to ask you the same question.
Yeah, I would again. I have a really simple answer to this one. We are trying to connect. They exist, and they're all tied together. And so I think the food move. I think what the dots that Lyle described, the small little move of food things around the edges of everywhere, is part of a larger resurgence of countercultural energy that hasn't fully expressed itself yet. And we're trying to aid and abet that with the new Bitcoin site and any which way we can.
Well, these little bits in the system do add up. And what I hope would happen is that as things progress and as the dots get connected, or at least become aware of each other, that the traditional ways of allocating capital for the sake of production and growth and benefiting humanity get realigned because of what's going on and because of what you guys are trying to do. I really hope that that's something that we can see happening. That's the little revolution that we're talking about right now. So thank you for what you do. We will keep pushing the envelope on that. And if people are looking for ways to start their own little movement in their own little communities, we will set up the links for them to get in touch.
Very good. Thank you, Jeff.
Could I just come in while we're finishing off? I want to try and just get a sense of maybe just concluding everything so we can get a decent recording. There is a movement that I've picked up in Southern Africa, which is about a 50 billion revenue, 50 billion in terms of loans given to local communities by local communities. It's called a stockvel. Now I've put that into the chat. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's a very Dutch term but it's a stockvel, which is STOKVEL, and it is communities funding communities. It is literally that thing that Woody and both Lyle have spoken about, and it is a 50 billion community. We're not talking small money in that respect, and I would imagine, based on the discussions that I've heard this evening, I think for me, if I just listen to how exciting this whole environment is, we're moving away from keeping up with the Joneses. This hyper, I don't know what is, commercialization of everything, to becoming real human beings again, which is really refreshing for me to see and to hear and to understand that we're moving towards that in terms of a drive and let's say a movement towards that type of sort of culture. We've had too much of the big A-list stars and with Tyler, what's it, those singers, and everybody has got to say. It's more about the community. So that's just one aspect that I'd like to just pick out, that this is actually a real thing. It's done in reality in many communities across the world, and it's not something that you're just dreaming up. It's actually happening right now, which is quite exciting. So I don't know if you want to just comment on that. Maybe Woody, if you want to start on that, if just to help me finish off on the record.
Well, first, I want to be a healthy skeptic, and hopefully healthy, definitely skeptical, of the number 50 billion. That's really a hard number to believe. Without, of course, I don't know any of the details, but what I wanted to say, whether that's obviously if it came from a credible source and there's some flow of capital and they're measuring it that way, that's one thing. Scale is part of the problem. Like, you're absolutely right. everything I've done could be described as warmed over E.F. Schumacher and Wendell Berry. I mean, I didn't have to come up with a single new idea, but I did. Just a few, a few nuances, a few, threads woven together a slightly different way. But the threads have been going on for a long time. You're absolutely right. And I think we just have to be wary of measuring success in the billions. That's not, yes, there are billions of people. So sure, billions, whatever. But we need to trust in terms of the actual doing of the thing. I forget the phrase you used, Dudley, about humanity, restoring, reaffirming a common humanity, whatever that was. I'm thinking of it as reaffirming, the real versus the fake. I mean, which is the same thing, stated slightly differently. To do that, you have to be willing to go, if you go back to what Lyle said, just interrelationship.
Woody, thank you both. What I keep coming back to is the idea of slow money. Small farms, local food, community scale capital. Not every investment needs to be fast. Some need to be rooted. If that resonates with you, act on it. Links to Lyle and Woody's work are in the show notes. This is When People Lead. I'm Jeff Rola. Until next time, keep leading with people first.
Thank you for listening to When People Lead. If this conversation moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. It helps more people find the show. Until next time, remember, change doesn't wait for permission. It starts with people like you.